Good afternoon. I'm Chef Jackson Lamb. I'm at the Hospitality Learning Center at MSU Denver. Today, I'd like to talk about aging a ribeye steak. What exactly is aging all about? Aging is a matter of controlled decomposition of beef. So we're going to examine two principles today: dry aging and wet aging. Dry aging is when we take a piece of beef and it's hung in a dedicated meat locker for 30 to 45 days. Now, we can do this in specialty meat shops. It's a little bit more difficult to do that at home unless you have a refrigerator that has nothing else in it. Because when you leave a piece of meat exposed in a refrigerator, it's going to pick up the flavors of other foods that are in that refrigerator. So while you could possibly do a dry aged steak at home, it's a little bit more difficult. So let's turn our attention to wet-aged steaks, and more specifically, a wet-aged ribeye steak. Here is such an example. Here's a steak that we purchased. This is in cryovac, and cryovac is the professional equivalent of a seal-a-meal system that you may have at home. So if we can take this steak, purchase this, put it in our refrigerator, and leave it alone for 30 to 45 days, what's going to happen is nature is going to take over. It's going to start to break down the tendons in that meat, and the result will be an aged steak. When we buy aged meat at the butcher, it's a little bit more expensive because the butcher had to sit on that meat for an extra 30 to 45 days, taking up space, and he had to pay the rent in that space. So anytime we're dealing with anything that's aged, it's going to be slightly more expensive because of the amount of time that the producer has put into it. In closing, dry aged, wet aged, they both produce a terrific steak. This is Chef Jackson Lamb. Thanks for tuning in.